I'm now going to hand things over to the Office of the Children's Commissioner, who will share some voices of children and young people. These voices are a reminder of why we are all here.
To whom this may concern, this is an important message, but I do not know who to write it to. I do not know who's going to listen. I do not know who cares. I am writing it because I know I need help. I deserve help, and there are so many other kids who need to be heard, and I've lost a lot of friends who left a different message after it was too late. One of my mates, he wrote a message. He put in his statement to the police that he did drugs to escape the stress, to escape the world. Both his parents had to work 2 jobs to pay the bills. Rent in Tāmaki is always going up and they were always behind. His parents would hardly be home, and when they were home, they were always fighting, always arguing. It's been a long time since things were okay. He had to take care of his sisters and brothers, and sometimes when he was babysitting, he would smoke just to escape. My cousin, she wrote a message. She was caught passing notes in class and was told to go see a counselor. The note she wrote was a question. Did anyone have somewhere for her to sleep that night? Her dad lost his job. They lost their home, and now they were sleeping in their cars. They had been staying with different family and friends, but Mum and Dad kept fighting. She ran away from home, and she had been staying with some people. But one night, she woke up to someone trying to do something, and she hasn't been the same since. She just wanted to escape. A girl at youth group. She tagged a FTW message on the toilet doors. People had talked about her for months. They said she had changed. She was angry, she was moody, she was sad. I remember the youth leader telling her to get her act together, and the girl responded, "Stuff you. You don't know me." At home, she would lock herself in the toilet. It was the only room she could have to herself, the only room she could lock. When the parties were on, when the music was loud and adults were behaving weirdly towards her, she would lock that door and escape. The captain of my sports team, he wrote a message on Facebook. He was depressed and sharing sad songs and sad stories. Lots of people were surprised because he seemed tough, seemed confident. He loved his dad. His dad was his number one hero. But when his dad got drunk, he would hurt him, tell him to man up. There were times I noticed him be violent and mean at our games. Some people thought he could be a bully. The way he would hit people during games, some of the words he would use when he was angry, especially to his younger brother. Maybe that's how he escapes. During COVID-19 lockdown, there was this message. It said that everyone had to stay home, stay in their bubble to stay safe. I remember thinking about the kids that don't have a safe bubble. It made me think about the messages they wanted to share, to give and to say, and who they want to send it to. I know that they have stories to tell just like me, but no one wants to hear them, or they only want to hear them when it suits them. Children and young people should grow up in families, communities, a country they belong to, that they don't want to escape. To whom it may concern.
Kia ora tātou mihi ana ki te moko puna rāhui anō, tēnā rā koutou katoa, nau mai e rarau ki tō tātou nei tari, te kai kōmihana mō ngā tamariki o Aotearoa. Mihi ana ki tō tātou nei kai kōmihana, Judge Francis Evers, he uri no Ngāti Maniapoto. Hui anō ko Ngāu Rāwari Woods tēnei mihi ana, he moko puna, mai ngā iwi o Ngāti Pro, te Atiawa me ngā rua hine, hui anō tēnā rā koutou katoa. And of course, as an office, we haven't directly engaged with mokopuna on this kaupapa of family violence and sexual violence. So the stories and voices we have heard and gathered have been part of other kaupapa, other projects and visits over the past 5 years. Considering We haven't directly asked mokopuna about family violence and its impacts. We have heard a lot, and the insights are quite clear. Te tuatahi, they fight when they are stressed. Te tuarua, to help me, you need to help my whānau. Te tuatoru, understand me in my whole world. Te tuawha, I need a safe space that is mine. Te tuarima, I need someone who is there for me. And te whakamutunga, connection to my community is important. Now, mokopuna have shared with us that when adults in their family fight, it makes them feel sad, unsafe, and scared. They are often aware of the harmful relationships dynamics within their whānau and home. Many mokopuna who talked about experiencing and witnessing violence also mentioned family financial stress and poverty, substance abuse, unhealthy relationships, and adults being unable to regulate their own emotions and behaviours. Now, some mokopuna took on the responsibility of ensuring the safety and care of their siblings and other children in the home, and some said they felt responsible for the violence they experienced. Now, William, he is a young man living with his father and younger brothers ki te tai tokero. As the eldest child, he has good memories with his mother and father, and he smiles as he shares these with us. His parents separated when he was still young, and he has been a primary caregiver to his brothers ever since. Now, this is because his father lost his job and started to use drugs as a way to manage his stress. Then he started to hit him and his brothers. Now, William loves his dad. He hopes that his dad can find support to manage his stress better and to find some mahi. He also wants his brothers to feel safe at home and have a good relationship with their papa. And all of this makes William sad and stressed. Now, of course, feelings of isolation, loneliness, and powerlessness were commonly expressed by these mokopuna. They told us they'd lost hope, that things would change at home. Some experienced genuine fear for their own well-being, and this fear prevented them from being able to live ordinary lives. Now, some mokopuna told us that they did not know where to get support. However, most had a trusted adult or community space that they accessed to get that support. They described how these services helped them by listening, giving them a place to be themselves, and also focusing on their lives and goals. Now, many shared they wanted more support for their whānau because while they would be making changes, they had to return to a space with adults stuck in a bad cycle. Mokopuna were also aware of their peers experiencing violence, and often they were the first to provide support. Now, let's focus on Destiny, a teenager living with her parents and siblings ki te Tairāwhiti Tūranganui Ākiwa in Gisborne. We met her at a youth service that she says has been the greatest support for her to achieve her moemoeā, her dreams. When we asked what other support she needs, she told us about her father, who has been very abusive to her mother and has been struggling for years to overcome his alcohol addictions. Now, she feels sad that she has found a place and people that have helped her succeed, and she feels guilty that she can escape, but that her father and mother might be stuck like this for the rest of their lives. She doesn't understand why her support can't support her parents too. We also heard that connections with positive people outside of the whare is vital for mokopuna experiencing violence. Having a space that is safe to go to where there are people who genuinely care about them and where there are activities they want to do. And they also help them navigate their family dynamics. Mokopuna want a strong community support around them and their whānau. They told us when others are willing to be there for them and give support, it makes them feel safe and hopeful. Now let's focus on the kōrero from David, a young man who joined a group for young people who want to make a difference in their hapori, in their community. He told us that he didn't really know what to expect when he joined the group, but over time he started to trust his peers because they had similar experiences and stories to him. He heard one of his peers share about sexual abuse that they had experienced. It was the first time he had heard anyone talk about it. This gave him the courage to share about his own experience, and he was supported by his peers to also get support from people they knew. Now, I'm going to share one more story with you, and along with the other stories I've shared, I want you to think about what a safe, violence-free childhood looks or feels like. I want you to think about these mokopuna who have told us, and the many children and young people who have shared their stories and solutions take a moment now to remember the voices and stories or the kōrero of these young children, young people and mokopuna that you have heard. Let's take some time right now. Ahoy anō e te iwi, he pātai tēnei is around how do we engage with them in a meaningful, child-centered and ethical way so that they can guide us to create an Aotearoa New Zealand where they are safe, supported, involved and thriving. What does good collaboration between us as their trusted caregivers, whānau, community kaimahi and leaders look like through Te Aorerekura? Now, the Children's Commissioner, Judge Francis Evers, has committed our office to supporting this kaupapa. Ending family violence is one of the Commissioner's 4 strategic priorities. I want to leave you with Terry, who was a young wahine from Dunedin. She told us that she experienced violence at a very young age and had to be removed from her whānau. People in her school and community knew her story, so they would treat her differently. When she would go to see a counsellor or a nurse about anything, they made her do assessments and they would read her notes and then treat her like they knew what was best for her. This made her feel both sad and angry because she doesn't get the opportunity to tell her own story her own way. She said that if adults really want to help mokopuna, they need to give them a chance to tell their story, to be treated like they matter and to be supported to create their own solutions. And of course, a challenge out to everyone that is on this conference to hear from mokopuna, hear from tamariki around Aotearoa kia tū rangatira I tēnei ao me te pōpōtanga. And I'm going to leave you with our kaupapa o tēnei tari kia kuru pounamu te rongo so that our mokopuna can live their best lives. Hoi anō, tēnā rā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Ngā tēnā rā koe e te rangatira e nō mō inai kōrero. Thank you so much for sharing these very moving and sobering kōrero from our tamariki mokopuna out there. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is feeling very passionately right now after hearing your kōrero. So just a big mihi to you and the Office of the Children's Commissioner and the mahi that you do and the kaupapa that you have brought to us today here at the Te Aorerekura Hui. You know, you've really helped to remind us that for young people, these experiences impact their physical and mental health and how they interact with the world. Ka aroha kia rātou. So I just want to mihi to all the brave young tamariki mokopuna who shared their voices for this kaupapa. E ngā rau rangatira mā. E kore mutu te mihi aroha kia koutou. Ka pai whānau e te iwi. I hope everyone's doing all right out there. We have having a little change in the huarahi for a moment, where I'm going to invite Emma Powell, who spoke earlier of Te Puna Aonui, to come back into the kaupapa, and I'm going to ask her a few questions. So no mai hoki mai, Emma. Nice to see you again.
See you again.
So just some questions that have come in. I suppose the first one is, what is Te Puna Aonui?
Well, Te Puna Aonui is the joint venture for the elimination of family violence and sexual violence. So on the 1st of July, we took up the mantle of our new name, and we heard a bit about that earlier. Te Puna Aonui represents so much. It represents not only those 10 government agencies working together, it represents all of the people within them who have been working in this space, in this kaupapa for so long. It represents the communities that we're here to serve and the importance of the strength of those connections and the reciprocity of how we're working together. And, you know, I think today is such a great day to really embrace that. Te Puna Aonui, the group that I look after, so I'm so privileged to be the new Chief Executive of Te Puna Aonui. We have a lot of mahi underway. We have a lot of work that we're looking to do in the engagement of a range of communities. So we are working right now with disability community, rainbow community, women, male survivors, victim survivors of violence, and a range of different communities to ensure that we build an enduring platform for engagement. Now, you heard earlier Poata talk about the essence and importance of the voice of whānau, the voice of the people in the community, to be where we must stand first. And so for us, really looking at how we bring voice of community through, not just once every so often, not just when we go out, but actually in an ongoing way to really drive the work and shape the work that we do. Because after all, we're here to serve the community. This isn't about government serving itself. It's absolutely about working out how do we get out of the way when we need to, but how are we right there in terms of funding and support and development of things when we need them. So to me, Te Puna Aonui embraces so much, and we are right at this moment in time with Te Aorerekura, with our action plan, and with a lot of commitment behind it. We're really at the beginning of something I think truly unique and really exciting.
It's so exciting, so encouraging to hear. Can you give us a bit of an idea of how you are building the whole of government collaboration?
Yeah, so, you know, the joint venture has been around now for a few years. And so we've been exercising our muscles when it comes to working together and collaborating. I have a range of key groups across government that come together regularly to challenge one another, to ask the right questions, and to really monitor how well we're going with the things that we said we were going to do. It's so important that when we say we're going to do something, that we really follow through on it. And so for me, that collaboration has to come with each other. Collaboration is a really big word, and if it's easy to say, it's a much harder practice to take on. And so we really need to keep exercising those muscles when it comes to collaboration. We obviously have a board of chief executives, and I'm so pleased that a number of them will be joining us throughout the next couple of days to sit in, to listen, to take note of the things that we are hearing from the leaders across our communities, and they're going to be offering some reflections as well. It's a really unique setting for government. There's only a couple of these arrangements across government right now. And so those chief executives on that board, they operate as one. They have to come together and really coalesce around the challenges and the things, the interventions and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And so for me, you know, we've got support across the agencies. We've got huge support within that board. It's chaired by Peter Hughes, who's the Public Services Commissioner. You can't get any higher than that in public service. He is really driving a great program of work. And so when I think about that, we're all well supported and committed to do the right thing. Are we there yet? No. Are we going to have some tough conversations? Absolutely. Will there be trade-offs as we go and we decide what we need to do? Absolutely. But I can absolutely promise you that we will be guided by the voices of whānau in making those decisions, the voices of our communities, and we are building all of the foundations, and we're laying those foundations to help us get there.
Kia ora, tēnā koe. I have another question for you. So what gives you hope that we can succeed with this kaupapa?
You know, across my career, and particularly in the last 10 or so years, working in violence prevention, working to support big programs of work and transformative change when it comes to services and supports for those impacted by violence. I know that we must. And so there isn't a question of, what will we do today? You know, we absolutely must. And so my hope lies in the fact that we have done some of these things already. There is fabulous practice. There are fantastic initiatives that are happening out there. We just don't get to see them all the time. We haven't scaled them in a way where they can be effective for many. I know that in many small communities across Aotearoa, there is fantastic initiatives happening, but they're happening on the smell of an oily rag, and they are not being brought to life and necessarily being scaled to the degree that all can access. So it gives me hope, because I really believe that the solutions are there. The solutions lie with our whānau and our communities and with all the kaimahi who are working around them. So I know the solutions are there. Our biggest challenge is to flow funding to those solutions, and we must. I have hope because I know my team believe in this. I have hope because I can see it every day when people come to work and they know what they're here for and they are striving every day to do their very, very best. I also have hope because I've got a teenage daughter and a young son, and I have hope for them. I watch my young daughter who is phenomenal, and the way that for them, inclusion is just part of who they are and what they do. They haven't had to learn that like some of us later in life. And it gives me great hope that they are really the leaders of tomorrow. It's so important that we remember we only have this for a short time. Any one of us are only the kaitiaki of this work. And for the time that I have it, I'm so committed, and it's a real privilege to help, usher that through.
Kia ora. It's such it's so wonderful to hear you elaborate more on this kaupapa. So thank you so much. What do you think government can do to enable community leadership?
Yeah, so there's a lot that government can do, and there's a lot that government is doing already. And you're going to hear very shortly later on in our program, we have a new set of roles across government which are really focused in the regions. And I'm really excited because you're going to hear a bit more about those roles. And so those are the regional public service commissioners. And so this whole idea that we must move to, which is devolving decision-making, resource allocation, how we think about the way that services are commissioned and framed, designed with community and led by whānau voice. I mean, those are all big words, right? And kind of how you make that happen, but it must happen locally. Government has to work out centrally its role and purpose in all of that, and we are certainly turning our minds to that. But in terms of that regional development and regional kind of leadership and governance around that, that is absolutely where we need to go next. And so how those things are coming together, the strength of the relationships. We also have some initiatives underway within Te Puna Aonui to really help support at a locality space or a community level, several small investments where we can really start to support the coordination, certain capability build, all those sorts of things are going to really help at that local level to enhance a community to really own the solutions themselves.
Kia ora.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that for whānau watching today who are, out there in the community, that this is really resonating for you all. And I do encourage you that if you have thoughts or questions that you pop them into the chat. And then because we will have these moments, sometimes planned, sometimes not planned, where we can ask questions of our kai kōrero. Ka pai whānau, thank you. And I'm sure we will see you again, Emma. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe.